Title: Love Yourself First. Chapter 1. The Shattering Truth. The morning sun cast a golden glow across the kitchen, soft light spilling onto the polished countertops and floor. It was a typical day, quiet, peaceful, the kind of morning that made Clara feel grateful for her simple, steady life. She stood in her favorite spot by the window, cradling a steaming cup of coffee in her hands, the scent of freshly brewed beans swirling around her. She took a deep breath, inhaling the familiar comfort. The rhythmic sound of her husband, Ben, moving around upstairs made her smile. She loved these moments when they were alone in the house, just the two of them. The outside world didn't matter. It was as if time slowed down, giving her a chance to savor the life she had worked so hard to build. The house, with its warm colors and cozy nooks, had been her sanctuary for years. It was where they had celebrated anniversaries, laughed over burnt dinners, and snuggled on rainy days. Clara's heart swelled with contentment, but even that comfort came with an underlying whisper of unease. Something felt different, though she couldn't quite place it. A subtle shift in the air, a tension that had woven itself into their everyday interactions. Ben had been more distant lately, and when she asked if everything was okay, he brushed her off with a quick smile or an excuse about work. Clara had wanted to believe him, had convinced herself that she was just being paranoid. After all, they had been together for years, and trust was the foundation of their marriage. Wasn't it? As Ben came down the stairs, his footsteps familiar yet somehow heavier, Clara turned to greet him with a soft smile. He leaned in and kissed her cheek, the touch fleeting and mechanical, lacking the tenderness it once had. She brushed off the unease creeping up her spine. Perhaps it was just the stress of his job. "You're up early," he remarked, his voice casual as he poured himself a cup of coffee. "Couldn't sleep," Clara replied, taking a sip from her own cup. She watched him over the rim, noticing the way he avoided meeting her gaze. The silence between them stretched, thin and uncomfortable. Clara tried to make small talk, but Ben was distant, distracted, his attention elsewhere. That familiar warmth between them seemed to have evaporated, replaced by a hollow space that neither of them acknowledged. Clara's intuition whispered again, stronger this time. Something was off, but she pushed it aside, forcing herself to smile as he grabbed his briefcase and headed out the door. She told herself she was overthinking, that everything would be fine once the stress passed. They would find their rhythm again. But the days stretched into weeks, and that tension only grew. It was a Saturday afternoon when everything unraveled. Clara had spent the morning cleaning the house, trying to distract herself from the nagging feeling that something was wrong. She wiped down the counters, vacuumed the living room, and organized the bookshelves, anything to keep her mind busy. But as she moved through the house, the silence pressed in on her, amplifying her unease. Ben was upstairs in the shower, and Clara could hear the water running. As she passed by his side of the bed, she noticed his phone lying on the nightstand, screen dark but unlocked. Normally, she would have walked right past it, but today, something made her stop. A pull she couldn't ignore. Her hand hesitated, hovering over the phone for a moment before she picked it up. The screen lit up instantly, revealing a message. The name, Sophie, appeared at the top, along with a preview of the text. "Miss you already, can't wait to see you again." Clara's heart stopped. Her fingers trembled as she opened the message thread, scrolling through the conversation. The texts were filled with affection, flirtation, and longing, words that should have been reserved for her, but were instead exchanged with someone else. Each sentence was like a knife, cutting deeper and deeper into her chest. Time seemed to stand still as Clara absorbed the reality of what she was reading. The betrayal was so blatant, so unmistakable, that there was no room for denial. The man she had trusted with her heart, her life, had been lying to her. He had been sharing his love with someone else. She stood frozen in place, her mind racing, her body numb. The images of her life with Ben, the moments they had shared, flashed before her eyes. The laughter, the promises, the future they had planned together. All of it now felt like a cruel joke. The water in the shower stopped, and Clara heard Ben moving around. Panic surged through her as she realized she had only moments before he would come down the stairs. She quickly put the phone back on the nightstand, her hands shaking uncontrollably. Ben emerged from the bathroom a few minutes later, dressed casually, his hair damp. He glanced at Clara, who was standing by the bed, her face pale, her eyes distant. "Everything okay?" he asked, oblivious to the storm that was about to break. Clara's voice wavered, barely above a whisper. "Who is Sophie?" The question hung in the air, thick and heavy. Ben's face went blank, his eyes widening in shock. For a brief moment, he tried to mask it, but the guilt was written all over his face. "Clara, he stopped, struggling to find the right words. "I saw the messages, Ben." Her voice grew stronger now, fueled by the hurt and anger that had been building inside her. "I know everything." Ben's expression faltered, and his shoulders slumped as the weight of his deceit came crashing down. "It's not what you think," he started. But Clara cut him off, her voice shaking with emotion. "Don't lie to me. Don't make this worse than it already is." Ben stood there, silent, the truth finally catching up to him. He didn't deny it. He didn't apologize. He just stared at her, his face a mask of regret and shame. "I can't believe you would do this to us," Clara whispered, her heart breaking with every word. Tears streamed down her face as she stared at the man she thought she knew, the man she had loved for so long, the man who had betrayed her in the most devastating way possible. There were no more words left to say. The trust between them had been shattered, and there was no going back. With her heart in tatters, Clara turned and walked out of the bedroom. She grabbed a small suitcase from the closet, her hands shaking as she tossed in a few clothes and essentials. Ben didn't try to stop her. He didn't even follow her downstairs. As Clara stepped out the front door of the home they had shared for so many years, she felt the weight of her broken heart pressing down on her, threatening to suffocate her. But she kept walking, one foot in front of the other, determined not to look back. The drive to her new apartment was a blur, tears blurring her vision as she navigated the unfamiliar streets. The apartment was small, bare, and cold, nothing like the warm, comfortable home she had left behind. It echoed with the sounds of emptiness and heartbreak, a hollow shell of a space that matched the emptiness she felt inside. Clara collapsed onto the mattress on the floor, her chest heaving with sobs. She had lost everything, her marriage, her home, her sense of security. But in the midst of that pain, there was a tiny flicker of something else. It was faint, barely there, but it was enough to remind her that she had one thing left, herself. The apartment might have been a blank canvas, but so was she. This was the beginning of a new life, and though she didn't know what it would look like yet, she knew one thing for certain. She would never let herself be shattered like this again. And with that thought, Clara wiped her tears, took a deep breath, and vowed to rebuild herself, piece by piece. Chapter 2. The Long Road to Healing. The first few weeks after leaving Ben felt like a blur to Clara. She drifted through her days in a fog, her emotions dulled, as though someone had turned the volume down on her life. Her new apartment, sparse and quiet, felt more like a temporary shelter than a home. The echoes of her footsteps bounced off the empty walls, amplifying the loneliness that clung to her like a shadow. She couldn't stop replaying the moment she had discovered Ben's betrayal. His laughter, once comforting, now seemed tainted, laced with deception. The memories of their life together haunted her, sneaking up in the smallest of things. A cup of coffee brewed the way he liked it, the smell of his cologne lingering on her clothes. Every reminder of him twisted the knife in her heart a little deeper. Days passed in a monotonous cycle of waking up, staring at the walls, and numbly going through the motions of living. Clara tried to distract herself by binge-watching mindless television shows, the flicker of the screen casting a dull glow across her living room. But the noise didn't drown out the emptiness she felt inside. It merely masked it for a while, like a bandage covering a wound that refused to heal. It was during one of these evenings, when she was mindlessly scrolling through social media, that something unexpected happened. As her thumb lazily flicked past pictures of happy couples and vacation snapshots, she stumbled upon a post that made her stop. It was a photo of a woman standing in front of a large, vibrant painting. The caption read, "Turning pain into art saved me. It gave me a way to heal, a way to reclaim my life. Clara stared at the image for a long time, something stirring deep within her. She hadn't painted in years, not since she and Ben had moved into their home, and life had become busy with work, social obligations, and maintaining their marriage. But she had always loved it. Painting had once been her escape, a way to express herself when words failed. She had abandoned it somewhere along the way, lost in the demands of daily life. The post resonated with her, sparking a memory of the joy she once felt with a brush in her hand. The way the world seemed to melt away as she poured herself onto the canvas. For the first time in weeks, Clara felt a glimmer of hope, like a small light breaking through the fog. She needed to paint again. Without thinking, she rushed to the closet where she had stored away old boxes of art supplies when she moved. She opened them one by one, digging through forgotten remnants of her past self, brushes caked with dried paint, half-used tubes of acrylics, and canvases that had been gathering dust. Her fingers brushed against the cold metal of her easel, and a lump formed in her throat. She pulled it out, setting it up in the center of her living room. It was the only space she had, and it would have to do. Clara spread out her paints on the floor, laying down a canvas in front of her. She stared at the blank, white surface, feeling both excitement and fear. Could she still do this? Could she still lose herself in the colors and shapes like she used to? Her hand hovered over the palette, uncertainty freezing her in place. Then, with a deep breath, she dipped her brush into a vibrant red and made the first bold, sweeping stroke across the canvas. The moment the brush touched the surface, something inside her clicked. The emotions she had been bottling up for weeks, anger, sadness, betrayal, confusion, poured out of her and onto the canvas in bold, chaotic strokes. Red and black swirled together in a furious dance, followed by slashes of blue and green that represented the longing for peace she hadn't yet found. She painted without thinking, without planning, letting her hands move instinctively, guided by the storm inside her. Hours passed in a blur, but Clara barely noticed. Each stroke was like a release, an exorcism of the pain that had been building inside her. She painted until her arms ached, until her eyes blurred with tears and exhaustion. When she finally stepped back, the canvas before her was a riot of color and emotion, a raw, visceral expression of the heartache she had been carrying. It wasn't pretty, but it was honest. And in that moment, Clara felt something she hadn't felt in weeks: relief. For the first time since Ben's betrayal, she felt like she had taken a step forward. It was a small step, but it was enough. She stood there, staring at the painting, her chest heaving, tears streaming down her face. It wasn't just the painting she had poured herself into. It was her healing. And though she knew she had a long road ahead of her, this was the beginning. In the days that followed, Clara began to make painting a daily ritual. Every evening after work, she would set up her supplies and lose herself in the rhythm of brushstrokes. Her living room gradually filled with canvases, each one a different reflection of the complex emotions swirling inside her. Some were dark and stormy, filled with jagged lines and heavy colors. Others were softer, more hopeful, as if she was painting her way toward the light. But it wasn't just the painting that helped. Clara realized that she needed more than just creative expression to heal. She needed to reclaim her life in other ways, too. One evening, after finishing a particularly intense piece, she signed up for a dance class on a whim. She had always loved dancing but had never pursued it seriously. Now, it felt like another way to reconnect with herself. The dance class became another lifeline for Clara. At first, she felt awkward and self-conscious, her body stiff from months of emotional tension. But as the weeks passed, she began to let go, allowing herself to move with the music, to feel the joy of movement in her body again. It wasn't just about the dancing. It was about reclaiming the parts of herself she had forgotten. Through the dance class, Clara met other women who were on their own journeys. They bonded quickly, sharing stories of heartbreak and healing over cups of tea after class. These women became her support system, offering her understanding and friendship at a time when she needed it most. They laughed together, cried together, and reminded each other that healing wasn't linear, that it was okay to have setbacks as long as you kept moving forward. It was in one of these conversations that Clara decided to join a local book club. Reading had always been a passion of hers, and she realized she had been neglecting it for far too long. The book club became another source of connection and inspiration, as she found herself diving into stories that made her think, feel, and reflect on her own life. Each new activity, painting, dancing, reading, was like adding another piece to the puzzle of her healing. Slowly, the numbness that had once consumed her began to fade. The heaviness in her chest lightened, and she found herself smiling more often, laughing with her new friends, and feeling a renewed sense of purpose. The road to healing was long, but Clara was walking it, one step at a time. And with every step, she felt herself becoming whole again. Chapter 3. Embracing Change. Months had passed since Clara first picked up the paintbrush, and with each passing day, she felt like a different person. The woman who had once lived in the shadows of heartbreak and self-doubt was slowly transforming into someone new, someone stronger, more confident, and unapologetically herself. The pain of her past hadn't disappeared, but it no longer defined her. Instead, it had become the fuel for her growth. Her routine had evolved too. She still painted, but now her days were filled with more than just creative expression. The dance classes had become a regular part of her week, and she had moved from the back of the class to the front, her once hesitant movements now fluid and graceful. The camaraderie with her fellow dancers, the shared joy of learning something new, made her feel like part of a community, a feeling she hadn't realized she had been missing. But the biggest change came one afternoon when Clara decided to try something entirely different. She had been looking for a new challenge, something that would push her out of her comfort zone. That's when she stumbled upon a flyer for a dinner. Clara stood in her kitchen, looking at the beautifully set table, the menu written out neatly on the chalkboard she had hung by the door, and the glow of candles flickering in the evening light. Her heart swelled with a mix of excitement and nervousness. She thought back to the woman she had been months ago, broken, unsure of herself, lost in the aftermath of Ben's betrayal. And now, here she was, on the eve of a celebration not just of her culinary skills, but of her own resilience and strength. This dinner party wasn't just about food. It was about reclaiming her life, about embracing the changes that had come her way, and about sharing that joy with the people who had supported her along the way. As she stood there, gazing at the transformed space, Clara felt something she hadn't expected: peace. It wasn't the absence of pain, but the presence of something stronger. Her own ability to rise above it, to find beauty in the broken pieces of her life and build something new. And tomorrow night, surrounded by friends and laughter, she would share that beauty with the world. Chapter 4. A Night to Remember. The evening of the dinner party had finally arrived, and Clara's apartment buzzed with an energy that felt electric. She had spent the entire day preparing, ensuring everything was perfect, and now the culmination of her efforts was unfolding. The air was filled with tantalizing aromas. Roasted vegetables mingled with the fragrant notes of saffron risotto, and the rich scent of chocolate cake wafted in from the kitchen. Each element of the evening spoke to her journey, and she could feel the excitement bubbling within her. As her friends began to arrive, laughter and warmth flooded the space. They stepped into the cozy apartment, shedding their coats and donning smiles that lit up the room. Clara greeted each one with hugs and a glass of wine, her heart swelling with gratitude. It felt wonderful to be surrounded by people who genuinely cared for her, who had supported her during her darkest days. "Wow, Clara, this place looks amazing," one of her friends, Lisa, exclaimed, taking in the beautifully set table adorned with flowers and candles. "Thank you. I wanted tonight to feel special," Clara replied, her voice bubbling with joy. They gathered in the living room, sipping wine and nibbling on the beet carpaccio she had prepared as an appetizer. Clara watched as her friends savored each bite, their faces lighting up with delight. "This is incredible. You've really outdone yourself," said Rachel, her eyes wide with appreciation. Clara beamed, realizing that her efforts had paid off. Each compliment felt like a badge of honor, a testament to her resilience and the vibrant life she was now building around herself. As they moved to the dining table, Clara proudly presented each dish, narrating the stories behind them. the inspiration she found in cooking, how each ingredient symbolized a piece of her journey. The flavors danced on their taste buds, and the room erupted in compliments and laughter. Clara felt a sense of belonging she hadn't experienced in years, a deep connection that filled her heart with warmth. Just as the evening reached its peak, with voices overlapping in joyful conversation and the clinking of glasses ringing in the air, the doorbell rang. Clara's heart skipped a beat. Who could it be? "Let me get that," she said, excusing herself from the table. She opened the door, and her breath caught in her throat. There stood Ben, looking bewildered and awkward in the soft glow of her apartment's lighting. "Clara, he started, but the sight of her surrounded by friends, radiant and confident, rendered him momentarily speechless. "Ben," she said, her tone steady yet gentle, "what are you doing here?" I heard about the dinner party. I wanted to see how you were doing," he stammered, his eyes darting around the room, taking in the laughter and warmth emanating from her friends. Clara's friends exchanged glances, sensing the tension that had suddenly enveloped. Gourmet cooking class. It promised to teach the fine art of blending flavors, plating dishes beautifully, and understanding the science behind creating exquisite meals. Clara wasn't much of a cook, but something about the idea intrigued her. It seemed like the perfect way to add another layer to her ongoing transformation. The class, held in a small, intimate kitchen studio, felt like stepping into a new world. The rich smells of herbs and spices filled the air, and the sight of gleaming knives, cutting boards, and fresh ingredients laid out on the counter awakened a curiosity within her. The instructor, a passionate chef who spoke of food like it was poetry, guided them through each step with patience and excitement. Clara was entranced. She had always thought of cooking as a chore, something to be done quickly to get to the eating part. But in that class, she discovered that cooking was much more than that. It was an art form, a way to express creativity through flavors and textures. The precision involved in cutting vegetables just right, the care it took to season a dish to perfection, the satisfaction of seeing something raw transform into something delicious. She loved it all. As the weeks went by, Clara dove deeper into the world of gourmet cooking. She began experimenting in her own kitchen, turning simple ingredients into elaborate meals. She practiced plating her dishes with care, arranging food on the plate like a painter crafting a masterpiece. It wasn't just about the food. It was about the experience, the process of creating something beautiful and delicious, something that brought joy not only to her but to others. It wasn't long before Clara's newfound love for cooking turned into a bigger idea. One evening, while plating a roasted vegetable dish for herself, she had a thought. Why not share this with others? The thought grew until it became a full-fledged plan. She would host a dinner party. Not just any dinner party, a celebration of the new life she had built, the friendships she had made, and the passion she had discovered. It would be a night filled with good food, laughter, and warmth, a reflection of how far she had come. Clara couldn't contain her excitement. She spent the next several weeks planning every detail of the event with the same care and creativity she applied to her cooking. Her apartment, though small, would be transformed into a cozy, intimate dining space. Clara envisioned soft candlelight flickering on the table, casting a warm glow over her guests. She chose her favorite dishware, elegant plates with delicate patterns that she had splurged on after deciding she deserved to treat herself. The table would be set with flowers and small, meaningful touches that represented her journey, perhaps a small, abstract sculpture she had made, or one of her early paintings, now framed and displayed with pride. The menu was the heart of the evening, and Clara approached it with the same enthusiasm and creativity that had driven her through her painting and dancing. She wanted the dishes to tell a story, each one representing a piece of her transformation. She started with a delicate appetizer, a beet carpaccio with goat cheese and arugula, a dish that spoke of simplicity but with a depth of flavor that surprised the palate. For the main course, she planned to serve seared scallops over a bed of saffron risotto, a dish that required patience and precision, much like her journey of self-discovery. Dessert would be a decadent flourless chocolate cake, rich and indulgent, representing the sweetness she had found in embracing her true self. As the day of the dinner party approached, Clara could hardly contain her anticipation. She spent hours in the kitchen, preparing each dish with care. The smells of roasting vegetables and simmering sauces filled her apartment, mingling with the soft music playing in the background. She felt a sense of pride that she hadn't felt in a long time. Pride in the life she had created, pride in the woman she had become. The night before the room. In that moment, Clara felt a wave of empowerment wash over her. This was her space now, filled with joy, laughter, and love. She had moved on, found happiness, and rebuilt her life. Ben's presence no longer held any power over her. "Come in," she said, her voice calm and inviting. "You should meet everyone." Ben stepped inside, visibly taken aback by the vibrant atmosphere of the gathering. Clara could see the conflicting emotions flickering across his face. Shock, confusion, perhaps even regret. She felt a surge of determination, wanting him to understand just how far she had come. "Everyone, this is Ben," she announced, her voice unwavering as she introduced him to her friends. They welcomed him with polite nods, their laughter and chatter a stark contrast to the silence that had once filled her home when it was just the two of them. And then, in a moment of clarity, Clara realized she wanted to show Ben how much she had changed, how much she had grown since he had walked out of her life. "Ben, this is my partner, Jake," she said, gesturing toward the man who had joined her in her journey of self-discovery. Jake stood by her side, exuding an aura of warmth and confidence. He offered Ben a firm handshake, his easy smile radiating kindness. "Nice to meet you," Jake said, his tone friendly yet firm, embodying everything Clara had been searching for. A true partner who uplifted her. The air thickened with unspoken words, a tension that felt almost tangible. Clara could see Ben's eyes widen in disbelief as he processed the reality of her transformation. But instead of feeling anxious or upset, she felt lighter than ever. She stood tall, knowing she had made the right choices for her life. This wasn't just a dinner party. It was a celebration of her journey, a reflection of her newfound strength and resilience. As the night continued, Clara watched Ben retreat into the shadows, grappling with the reality of the woman she had become. She turned back to her friends, the laughter echoing around her, filling the space with joy. Clara felt liberated as she engaged in lively conversations, sharing stories and creating new memories that would fill the pages of her new life. Ben stood off to the side, clearly out of place amidst the camaraderie and warmth that surrounded Clara. She could sense his discomfort, but it didn't matter. What mattered was the life she had built, the love she had discovered, and the vibrant connections she had fostered. As the evening drew on, Clara felt a sense of closure wash over her. The past had shaped her, but it no longer defined her. She had moved forward, and there was no looking back. In that moment, surrounded by laughter and love, she understood that embracing change was not just about moving on from heartbreak. It was about opening her heart to new possibilities. Clara raised her glass, her voice ringing out above the chatter. "To new beginnings," she toasted, her eyes shining with excitement and hope. "To new beginnings," her friends echoed, their voices harmonizing in a chorus of celebration. As the laughter swelled and the conversations deepened, Clara knew she had truly embraced change. She had found her place in the world again, one filled with joy, love, and a sense of belonging that she had thought was lost forever. And as she looked at Jake, smiling back at her with encouragement and pride, Clara realized that this was just the beginning of a beautiful new chapter in her life. Chapter 5. A New Beginning. As the evening came to a close, Clara felt an overwhelming sense of closure wash over her. The laughter of her friends still echoed in her ears, and the warmth of their companionship lingered in the air like a comforting embrace. She had shared her journey with them, embraced new love with Jake, and confronted the shadow of her past represented by Ben's unexpected appearance. It was a surreal experience, seeing the man who had once held so much power over her now standing on the periphery of her vibrant life. The door had closed on that chapter, and as she watched Ben leave, a bittersweet feeling washed over her. His presence had been a poignant reminder of where she had come from, but it no longer defined her. Clara was no longer that timid woman who had once doubted her worth. She had evolved into someone strong, capable, and ready to embrace whatever life had in store. In the weeks that followed, Clara continued to thrive. The rhythms of her life were now filled with color and creativity, each day a new canvas waiting to be painted. She embraced every opportunity for growth, eager to explore the facets of herself that had long been buried beneath layers of self-doubt. She shared her culinary adventures with friends, introducing them to the exquisite dishes she had mastered in cooking class. Her kitchen became a hub of laughter and experimentation, where they would gather to create, taste, and celebrate the joys of food together. Clara also delved back into her painting, rekindling her love for the brush and canvas. She would spend evenings with splashes of color swirling around her as she poured her heart into each piece, reflecting her evolving identity. The art she created was raw and authentic, capturing her journey from heartbreak to healing. It became a visual representation of her resilience, each stroke a testament to her strength. As she filled her life with new passions and activities, the pain of betrayal began to fade into the background, replaced by a vibrant tapestry of love, friendship, and self-acceptance. Clara reveled in the small victories, finishing a complex recipe, receiving praise for her artwork, or simply enjoying a peaceful afternoon in the park with a good book. One evening, while hosting a small gathering for her closest friends, Clara felt the warmth of connection wrap around her like a soft blanket. They gathered in her living room, a space filled with light and laughter, the walls adorned with her artwork, each piece telling a story of her journey. As they sipped wine and reminisced, Clara realized how far she had come. "Remember when we used to talk about dreams? What we wanted to do?" Lisa asked, her eyes sparkling with nostalgia. Clara smiled, her heart swelling with appreciation for her friends. "I do. It feels like a lifetime ago," she replied, thinking back to the nights when they had shared their hopes and aspirations over glasses of cheap wine and takeout. "I love seeing you so happy, Clara. You've blossomed," Rachel added, raising her glass in a toast. "To Clara, the unstoppable force," Jake said, grinning as he joined the toast. The love in the room was palpable, and Clara felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude for the support that had carried her through the darkest moments. As the laughter faded and the night drew to a close, Clara realized that her journey was far from over. It was just the beginning. With each passing day, she learned to love herself first, embracing her passions, nurturing friendships, and finding joy in the little things. She was rediscovering the woman she had always wanted to be, and it felt exhilarating. Clara stood in front of the mirror one morning, admiring the reflection that looked back at her. The woman staring back was confident, vibrant, and full of life. She had transformed her pain into purpose, creating a life that was not only beautiful but also a testament to her resilience. Clara took a deep breath, her heart swelling with pride as she recognized the strength within her. With a renewed sense of self and purpose, she stepped out into the world, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. She understood that life would inevitably present obstacles, but she also knew she had the tools to navigate them. Each challenge was an opportunity for growth, a chance to learn more about herself and the life she was crafting. As she closed the door behind her, Clara felt the sun's warmth on her skin, a gentle reminder that a new day awaited her, a day filled with endless possibilities. She walked forward with purpose, her heart open to whatever adventures lay ahead, ready to embrace the beauty of life with open arms. She was Clara, a woman reborn, and the world was hers to explore. Epilogue: Love yourself first. Months later, Clara stood in her kitchen, surrounded by the warm glow of evening light streaming through the window. The aroma of a delicious meal wafted through the air, tantalizing her senses as she stirred a bubbling pot of homemade marinara sauce. Fresh herbs lay scattered across the counter, their vibrant green a sharp contrast to the rich red of the sauce. She smiled, taking a moment to breathe in the fragrant blend of garlic, basil, and tomatoes, savoring the satisfaction that came from creating something beautiful. As she stirred, Clara reflected on her journey over the past several months. It was a journey that had taken her through the depths of heartbreak and led her to the heights of self-discovery. The challenges she once viewed as insurmountable had transformed into stepping stones, guiding her toward a life she never thought possible. She felt an immense gratitude for each experience, the pain, the loneliness, and ultimately, the resilience she had discovered within herself. She had embraced cooking not just as a hobby, but as a profound expression of her newfound love for herself. It had become a sanctuary, a place where she could experiment, create, and nourish not only her body but her soul. Clara loved hosting dinner parties, where laughter echoed through her home and her friends gathered around the table, sharing stories and savoring the meals she prepared. Each gathering was a celebration of her journey, a reminder of how far she had come. Setting the table for another dinner party, she carefully arranged her favorite dishware, each piece a reminder of the life she was building. The table was adorned with colorful cloth napkins and twinkling candlelight that danced like little stars against the backdrop of her home. As she arranged the final touches, her heart swelled with gratitude. She remembered the lonely nights in her small apartment, the uncertainty that clouded her mind, and how she had emerged from that darkness stronger than ever. Clara stepped back to admire her work, a sense of accomplishment flooding over her. She had learned to love herself first, and in doing so, she discovered a life filled with color, laughter, and endless possibilities. The friendships she had cultivated were deep and meaningful, each one a thread woven into the fabric of her new life. She cherished the connections she had built, knowing they were a testament to the woman she had become. As she finished preparing the meal, Clara thought of her friends, eagerly awaiting the moment they would gather in her home once more. Their joy and laughter would fill the space, creating a tapestry of warmth that she had longed for. She could hardly wait to share her culinary creations, to see their faces light up with delight as they tasted her dishes. With a heart full of joy, Clara glanced around her kitchen, taking in the vibrant colors of fresh ingredients and the sounds of sizzling pans. She marveled at how cooking had transformed from a chore into a passion, a way for her to express her love for herself and those around her. Each meal was crafted with intention, a reflection of her journey and a symbol of her commitment to nurturing her own well-being. Clara smiled, knowing she was finally living the life she had always dreamed of, a life rooted in self-love and joy. She felt a sense of peace settle within her, a comforting assurance that she was exactly where she was meant to be. The echoes of her past no longer haunted her. Instead, they served as reminders of her resilience and growth. As the doorbell rang, announcing the arrival of her friends, Clara's heart raced with excitement. She wiped her hands on a kitchen towel and took a deep breath, welcoming them into her home with open arms. The sound of their laughter filled the air, and in that moment, Clara knew she had created a life worth celebrating, a life that reflected the love she had for herself and for those around her. With joy radiating from her heart, she stepped into the warmth of her gathering, ready to embrace the present and all the beautiful moments yet to come. Clara had found her place in the world, and it was a place where love, laughter, and self-acceptance thrived.